The day my father betrayed me started like any other carefully staged family event. Chilly smiles, expensive wine, and tension you could slice through with a monogram cheese knife. I stood in the grand living room of my childhood home in Seattle, trying not to fidget with the hem of my silk blouse. My stepmother Clara fluttered around a crystal vase, obsessively repositioning white orchids, while my stepbrother Damien lounged on a leather chaise like a smug prince waiting to be crowned. I wasn't sure why I'd even come. Maybe some twisted part of me still hoped I'd get the acknowledgement I'd been chasing for the last 5 years. My name is Ariana Liu, and I'd spent half a decade working side by side with my father at Tech Global, a mid-sized logistics software company we'd grown into a rising name in green infrastructure. I held a master's in business administration, had led our biggest supply chain overhaul to date, and had closed multi-million-dollar clients no one else could even get a meeting with. My father always said I was his right hand. He always said the company would be mine one day. That day died tonight. "Everyone, please take your seats," my father, Edgar Liu, announced, his deep voice echoing through the glass-ceilinged room. That authoritative tone used to make me feel safe. Tonight it curdled something in my gut. Damien barely moved, sprawled in a $1,000 jacket like the world owed him a standing ovation. He was 2 years younger than me, didn't hold a single degree, and had never worked a legitimate day in his life. His Instagram bio said entrepreneurial spirit, whiskey connoisseur. No mention of the failed crypto project, or the modeling phase, or that time he tried to sell NFTs of vintage teapots. My father cleared his throat. "As you all know, I've been thinking seriously about the future of Tech and the family legacy. After a lot of reflection, and with Clara's invaluable input, I've made a decision about the next chapter." Clara gave him a soft smile and reached for his hand like they were announcing an engagement. "I've decided to transfer majority ownership and the CEO position to Damien." The words didn't register at first. Not really. I blinked. I looked at my dad, then at Damien, who grinned like a man who had just pulled off a perfect heist. My stomach turned. "What?" I whispered. "Ariana," my father started, but Clara jumped in, her voice syrupy. "It's the logical choice. Sweetheart. The company needs fresh energy, bold direction. Damien represents that." I stood slowly, the blood draining from my face. "Dad, we talked about this. You said when I hit 5 years. When the expansion was stable." I know what I said. He didn't meet my eyes. But things change. Damien has ideas that better align with our evolving goals. Damien finally moved. Leaned forward. His Rolex caught the chandelier light. "Don't worry, sis. We'll keep you on. Maybe something in operations? HR. You've got a good head for structure." I clenched my fist so hard my knuckles cracked. "Operations?" I said. "You're giving my job, my future, to someone who's never even read a P&L sheet?" "Let's not make this emotional," Clara cut in. "This is exactly why you're not ready for leadership." I turned to my father, desperate for something. An explanation, an apology, a flicker of doubt. He wouldn't look at me. "You'll keep your salary," he said flatly. "And your shares. Damien takes over in 4 weeks." It was already finalized. Everything I'd worked for. Every late night. Every deal I'd brokered. Every client I'd nurtured. All handed to the man-child who once thought we could cut costs by moving servers to Mars. I grabbed my purse, heart pounding, limbs trembling. I didn't trust myself to speak. Not without shattering. "Congratulations, Damien," I said through gritted teeth. "Enjoy running the company I bled for." I turned to leave. Clara's voice rang behind me, too sweet to be real. "This is exactly the kind of drama we don't need, darling. Leadership requires grace under pressure." I stopped at the doorway and turned back. "Dad." Still no eye contact. I took a breath. "Never mind. We're done." I walked out without slamming the door, but my heels cracked against the marble like gunshots. I held it together until I got to my car. Then I let the scream tear out of me. 3 words echoed in my brain as I drove aimlessly into the night. They chose him. By the time I reached my apartment, the city lights blurred behind my windshield like a bad dream I couldn't wake up from. I parked, sat in silence, and stared at my shaking hands. My phone buzzed. "Naomi. Hey, how'd the dinner go?" I couldn't lie. Not to her. He gave the company to Damien. The 3 dots appeared immediately. Then disappeared. Then reappeared. "What?" "I'm coming over." But I didn't wait. I tossed my phone aside, changed into jeans and a hoodie, and drove straight to Bartlett and Associates, the law firm that had handled my grandmother's estate. It was nearly 9 p.m. The building was dark, but I knew Miss Eleanor Bartlett sometimes stayed late. I rang the bell and waited. The door opened. She looked up from behind her tortoiseshell glasses. "Ariana," she blinked. "My goodness. What's wrong?" "I need to talk to you. About my grandmother. And Lutek. And everything." She stepped aside wordlessly and gestured to her small office. Walls lined with leather-bound folders and the faint scent of lemon polish. I sat, and for the first time in hours the tears came freely. I told her everything, what Dad said, how Clara smiled, how Damien looked like he was already printing business cards with CEO in gold foil. Miss Bartlett listened with quiet intensity, her fingers steepled under her chin. When I finished, she nodded slowly and stood up. "Then it's time." "Time for what?" She walked to a long filing cabinet, pulled open a locked drawer, and removed a folder sealed with red wax. "Your grandmother gave me this 6 years ago, with strict instructions. I was to open it only if you were ever cut out of the family business." I stared at the wax seal. She knew. She suspected. Miss Bartlett placed the folder before me. "Read." My fingers trembled as I broke the seal and opened the documents. Trust agreement. Beneficiary, Ariana Liu. Amount, $2.5 million. I guessed. "It's a private trust, structured to be invisible to your father," she explained. "Your grandmother set it up right after your mother passed. She saw things in Edgar that she didn't like. And she feared Clara's influence." My eyes scanned the clauses, my mind reeling. Conditions. Funds may only be used to start a business that is 100% independently owned by Ariana Liu. No family involvement, financial, managerial, or otherwise. Trust will be unlocked only after one full profitable quarter confirmed by certified accounting. Disclosure of the trust to any third party before criteria are met will void all access. She wanted you to create something that couldn't be taken from you, Ms. Bartlett said gently. She believed you were capable of building an empire of your own. I couldn't breathe. She never told me. She wanted you to choose it, not expect it. I sink back in the chair, heart racing. My grandmother. The only person who ever looked at me and saw more than daughter, or stepdaughter, or support staff. She left notes too, Bartlett continued. Ideas. Market gaps. Even contact lists. She handed me a second folder. I flipped through pages of neatly typed memos in my grandmother's crisp handwriting. Emerging demand in sustainable logistics. Client struggling with regulatory compliance. Ariana understands structure. Ariana is the one. Tears welled again. But this time not from grief. From fire. This changes everything. I whispered. Ms. Bartlett raised a brow. Then you're accepting the terms? I don't just accept. I stood slowly, my mind already buzzing. I'm going to make sure they regret underestimating me. She handed me the folder. One last thing. Your grandmother was very clear this trust must remain secret. No Naomi. No Dad. No one. Why? She said. Ariana's success must be seen as earned, not inherited. That's how she'll silence them all. I nodded, heart pounding. Then I guess I have a business to build. As I walked into the night, wind sharp against my face, I felt something I hadn't felt in hours, maybe days. Not rage. Not grief. Not even betrayal. Purpose. By sunrise, I'd already filled 5 pages in my notebook. I sat on my kitchen floor, surrounded by sticky notes, spreadsheets, and my grandmother's notes, a mug of bitter coffee growing cold beside me. I hadn't slept. I hadn't even changed clothes. But for the first time in days, my mind was electric. Naomi arrived at 7:30 a.m. sharp, yawning in leggings and a hoodie, holding a paper bag. I brought bagels and vitamin D shots. You looked like a haunted raccoon in your last text. I gave a tired smile. Perfect. I've got something wild to show you. She set down her things, looked around at the chaos, and raised a brow. Okay, Madwoman mode. What are we doing? I flipped my notebook to the page titled in all caps. ClearPath Dynamics, a new era of ethical logistics. Naomi blinked. That sounds extremely you. Explain. I began pacing, fired up. Every company wants to go sustainable now, but most don't know how. ESG regulations are tightening. Clients are demanding accountability. And smaller logistics firms, they're overwhelmed. No expertise. No roadmap. So I said, we build a consultancy that provides full-service sustainable transformation, carbon audits, eco-supply chain design, ethical sourcing verification. Not just theory. Execution. We don't just advise, we help implement. Naomi whistled. You're talking end-to-end green transition for logistics? I nodded. And I have the contacts. Half the vendors Lutech worked with are desperate for structure. She narrowed her eyes. Okay, boss lady. But how do you fund this? Your accounts are frozen. And we both know investors want traction. I had my answer ready. I've got savings. And I've been prepping for this just in case this kind of moment ever came. She paused, giving me a long look. This isn't just about business, is it? No, I admitted. This is about proving they were wrong. Every single one of them. Naomi opened her laptop. All right. Let's map it out. We spent the rest of the day building a business model. Naomi set up a quick prototype site. I built a pitch deck. We listed potential pilot clients. Her kitchen became a war room. I called in a favor to Leo, an old college connection who worked at a local co-working hub downtown. The next morning we toured the space, industrial chic, eco-friendly, walkable to half the logistics firms in Seattle. You want to rent a desk? He asked. No, I said, grinning. I want a private office. Today. He laughed. You're serious? Deadly. Within 48 hours, ClearPath Dynamics had a registered LLC, a domain name, a logo thanks to Naomi's graphic designer friend, and a basic landing page. I worked 16 hours a day, emailing former colleagues, reaching out to mid-sized supply firms, scheduling calls, and preparing service tiers. My first cold pitch went to a company called Eastlake Freight, which I knew had failed its sustainability audit last quarter. I offered a free consultation. To my surprise, the CEO replied that night. We've been burned before by consultants. You'll have to convince me. Challenge accepted. 2 days later, I stood in a small glass conference room in Eastlake's office with a simple laptop and a whiteboard. Their CEO, a sharp woman named Samantha Klein, sat across from me, arms crossed. I've seen a lot of these pitches, Ariana, she said. Why should I trust you? I didn't mention Lutech. I didn't mention Damien. I didn't mention anything personal. I told her the truth. Because I know how broken this system is. And I know how to fix it. Not with fancy brochures, but with structure, data, and skin in the game. You don't need a consultant. You need a co-pilot. She didn't smile. But she leaned forward. Show me your plan. That weekend, I built her an audit framework from scratch. Streamlined her procurement options. Flagged 2 vendors using greenwashing tactics. By Monday, I had my first contract. A 3-month pilot at $8,000 per month. It wasn't millions. But it was real. Back at the co-working space, Naomi walked in with a bottle of cheap champagne. You got the signature? I held up the contract. We're in business. We toasted in plastic cups. The bubbles made my eyes sting. Maybe it was that, or the fact that I finally felt like myself again. Then Naomi grinned. Guess who's asking around about you? I froze. Who? Damien, she said. A friend of mine in corporate PR said he asked if you'd hired anyone from Lutech. And whether you've been speaking to suppliers. I felt my jaw clench. Let him wonder, I said. I opened my laptop. ClearPath Dynamics had 1 client, 1 contract, and 1 purpose. Make them regret ever pushing me aside. 2 weeks later, I was in the middle of a client onboarding call when the receptionist at our co-working space buzzed in. Hi, Ariana. There's a Damien Lou here to see you. Says he's your brother. I froze mid-sentence. Naomi, across from me, mouthed, do not. I muted the call, composed myself, and replied. Tell him I'm unavailable. 5 minutes later, he walked in anyway. Nice setup, he smirked, gesturing at the minimalist office. Co-working chic. Very. Bootstrap. I stood, keeping my voice calm. You weren't invited. I just thought we could talk, he said, settling into the chair across from me like he owned the place. Dad's concerned. About what? He tilted his head. About you. About the direction you're taking. About the fact that you're meeting with his suppliers. I'm building a business. Legally. Ethically. On my own terms. Right. He glanced around, his gaze lingering on the Eastlake contract on my desk. It's just rumors are spreading that you're taking contacts using Lutech materials. I lean forward. If you're here to intimidate me, you're wasting your time. Relax, he said, holding up his hands. I just wanted to offer something. A role. Come back to Lutech. Help me build the green division. You be director level. Of course. I stared. You gave away everything I worked for. And now you want me to help clean up your image? It's business, Ariana. Not personal. No, I said flatly. It's betrayal. And now it's personal and business. He shrugged and stood. Just remember, you're not the only one who knows how to play the long game. He left without looking back. Naomi appeared seconds later. You okay? I'm fine, I said, even though my hands were shaking. I need to make a call. That night, I met with Ms. Bartlett again in her quiet downtown office. The room smelled like leather and old ink. He came to see you? She asked, frowning. He's probing, I said. Fishing for leverage. Probably trying to prove I'm using family resources illegally. Have you? No, I said. Not one document. Not one contact list. I'm clean. Good, she nodded. Then her voice lowered. But you should know they've hired someone. What do you mean? A private investigator. Not a good one, but persistent. My stomach dropped. I suggest tightening your digital hygiene, she said. And document everything, especially financials. The next morning I upgraded all my passwords, set up two-factor authentication, and asked Naomi to do the same. Then I called Leo, the manager of our co-working space. Can you give me logs of every visitor asking for me? He didn't ask questions. Just sent the list. Damien had come twice before. And so had someone named Caleb Beck, not a name I recognized. He's the PI, Naomi guessed. I ran it through my LinkedIn network. He used to work surveillance for real estate fraud. I exhaled slowly. They're scared, I muttered. That means I'm doing something right. But it wasn't just about fear anymore. The following week, I received an email from a former Lutech vendor, subject line. Request to decline partnership. I opened it. The message was polite. Hollow. Regretful. Unfortunately, due to recent communications with Mr. Liu, we must withdraw from consideration. I sat back. Damien was burning bridges before I could even cross them. What do we do now? Naomi asked as I read it aloud. We pivot, I said. I don't need hand-me-down vendors. I need new ones. And that's exactly what we did. Within 4 days, I'd sourced 2 new manufacturers, one in Portland, one in Sacramento, both eager to break into the sustainability market but lacking consulting infrastructure. I offered them partnerships in exchange for exclusivity. Win-win. ClearPath Dynamics wasn't just surviving. It was evolving. And every move I made, I imagined Clara's forced smile tightening. I imagined Edgar's frown deepening. Let them spy. Let them spread rumors. They could only slow me down if I played their game. I wasn't playing. I was building something they'd never understand. Independence. 3 months into launching ClearPath Dynamics, we hit our first major milestone. Eastlake Freight renewed their pilot into a full 6-month contract. Their CEO, Samantha Klein, even sent us a referral. A regional courier service struggling with a failed ESG audit and a PR nightmare. We need help before the board loses its patience, their COO admitted over Zoom. We can't afford another scandal. I didn't flinch. Then you've come to the right place. 2 days later, I signed our second client. Naomi burst into the office with donuts and celebration balloons. 2 clients. Real contracts. Profit margins green as our branding. I smiled, exhaustion and pride warring behind my eyes. We're getting there. We're doing it, she corrected. And you've barely even scratched the investor list. She wasn't wrong. I'd been saving that step, building proof of concept first. My pitch deck was nearly complete. Our Q1 financials were looking promising. A month from now, I'd begin the investor round. That night, I updated the financial tracker, reviewed legal compliance checklists, and drafted NDAs. It was past midnight when Naomi sent me a link. Podcast episode, The Woman Disrupting Green Logistics, featuring ClearPath Dynamics CEO Ariana Liu. I blinked at the title. What is this? I messaged. Surprise. Remember that journalist at the conference who asked about your East Lake work? She ran with it. You're trending on hashtag supply chain talk. I clicked play. My voice filled the speakers, calm but impassioned, explaining how green transformation wasn't a luxury, it was survival. That logistics could be ethical, scalable, and profitable if people stopped choosing shortcuts. Within 24 hours, we received 14 inquiries via our website. But not everyone was celebrating. Naomi walked in the next morning with a hard expression. Clara gave an interview. To who? Business Family Digest. She said. Naomi read from her phone. It's unfortunate Ariana has chosen to leave the family company under false pretenses. She had full access to our resources, but she's decided to exploit family connections to build something inferior. My jaw tightened. She's painting you as a thief and a liar, Naomi said. And Damien just posted a reel mocking startup CEOs who think contracts are impact. It already has 60K views. I didn't respond. I opened my LinkedIn, typed. When your worth is only recognized after you walk away, don't return. Build something so strong they have no choice but to notice. Then I clicked post. 2 days later, I was invited to speak on a panel at the Seattle Sustainability Forum. It wasn't a headline slot, but it was visible, influential, and it gave me a rare opportunity to go public, not just as a survivor of corporate betrayal, but as a new contender. The night before the event, I received a text. Unknown number. Tell me you're not really doing this. Let's talk. Dad. I stared at it. Then for the first time in months I replied. Too late. I'm already doing it. The panel was held at the Westin top-floor ballroom. Glass windows overlooking the city I used to think belonged to my father. I wore a navy pantsuit and a quiet smile. When the moderator asked about my journey, I didn't tell them about the betrayal. I told them about the solution. Our goal isn't to punish the industry, I said. It's to equip it. To move logistics into the future with systems that don't just serve the bottom line, but the planet. After the applause, a man in a blazer approached me. Jessica, right? It's Ariana. He nodded. I'm with Nucor Ventures. I think it's time we talk. Back at the office that evening, Naomi handed me a glass of wine. That guy, she asked. He wants a meeting. He's legit. He's early Tesla, early Zoom, early everything. Naomi grinned. So, what now? I held up my phone, which had just buzzed again. Another message from my father. Let's talk. Please. It's urgent. I turned off the screen. Now I said, we prepare for the pitch that changes everything. Because it was no longer about survival. It was about winning. The Pacific Green Logistics Conference was the biggest event of the year. Hundreds of vendors, panels, and keynote speakers packed into a buzzing, glass-walled convention center overlooking the water. It was also the first time I would present ClearPath Dynamics on a national stage. Our booth wasn't huge, barely 10 feet across, with a simple white backdrop and samples of our client sustainability reports on one side, product visuals on the other. But it was clean, confident, professional. Looks good, Naomi said, adjusting the banner behind us. We even have pins with our logo. We're real now. I laughed, but my stomach flipped when I spotted the Lutech logo across the hall. Bigger booth. Flashier screens. LED panels looping greenwash taglines. Tomorrow's supply chain today. And then I saw him. Damien. Wearing a midnight blue suit, sunglasses tucked into his collar. Flanked by 2 staffers with clipboards. My father Edgar stood beside him. Older. Grayer. His face unreadable. I turned away and focused on organizing our presentation samples. Let them have their flash. We had something they couldn't fake, proof. An hour later I was mid-pitch to a retail chain's sustainability officer when a voice cut through the noise. Well, look who's disrupting the industry. I didn't have to turn. I already knew. Good morning, Damien, I said coolly, finishing my sentence before acknowledging him. He sauntered over, picking up one of our eco-certification brochures. This looks familiar, he said, flipping it open. Didn't you use some of this framework back at Lutech? Naomi stepped forward. But I gently raised a hand. Everything in that binder is original, I said. Reviewed and certified. No shortcuts. Sure, he said, grinning. We're unveiling our own ESG dashboard next quarter. With our capital, We'll dominate this space by the end of the year. Let's hope your data practices have improved, I replied, voice calm but sharp. A reporter approached, eyeing both of us. Ms. Lou, Mr. Lou, she said. A family rivalry in green logistics? This could be a story. No rivalry, I said with a smile. We're just operating on different values. Half an hour later, I took the stage for our product demonstration. The room wasn't packed, but the seats filled steadily as I began. I didn't give a flashy speech. I showed numbers. Real audit reductions. Real carbon savings. Real case studies from clients who had already saved thousands in regulatory fines by implementing our systems. Our mission isn't to appear sustainable, it's to be sustainable, I said, closing the deck. And we're doing it with transparency, simplicity, and impact. Applause erupted, not polite but impressed. As I stepped off the stage, a woman in a navy pencil skirt approached, card in hand. Hi, I'm Erin Beasley, head of compliance at Harbor Retail Group. I'd like to schedule a meeting. Back at our booth. Naomi was waiting with wide eyes. You just tripled our inbound requests. People are asking for demos today. I barely had time to respond when another man in a gray blazer stepped in. Ms. Lou? He said. Thomas Cardwell. EcoChain Retail. We're reviewing our supplier partnerships and we're told you're the one to talk to. We scheduled 2 more meetings on the spot. And that's when I saw Edgar, standing near the back of the room, watching. We locked eyes for one long second. He nodded once, and then looked away. By the end of the day, we had 8 meetings booked, 3 contract proposals pending, and 1 surprise email in our inbox. Subject: Collaboration Opportunity. From Lutech Legal. I read it once, then deleted it. Later that evening, as we packed up the booth, Naomi bumped her shoulder into mine. Not bad for a startup that was supposed to fail. I smiled, body aching, heart full. They tried to erase me, I said softly. Now they'll have to watch me rise instead. And I meant every word. It started with a headline. Lutech faces environmental violations after internal audit leak. I was at our downtown office reviewing pitch materials with Naomi when her phone buzzed. She glanced down, then gasped. Ariana, you need to see this. The article detailed a leaked internal report exposing how Damien had authorized unregulated third-party vendors to cut costs, resulting in improper disposal of hazardous materials. Penalties were estimated in the tens of millions. A class action lawsuit from local communities was already forming. Whoa, Naomi whispered. They're going down. I read it once, twice, then closed the screen. Is it bad I don't feel bad? No, she said, it's justice. The next day, Clara filed for divorce. Damien disappeared, rumors said he was in Belize. Edgar went silent. Until he didn't. A week later, Maria, our new office assistant, stepped into my glass-walled office. There's someone here to see you. Edgar Lou. And his legal counsel. I looked up from my laptop, heart cold. Send them in. He walked in with a weight I'd never seen on him before. The crisp posture was gone, replaced with sunken shoulders and a nervous glance. Nice office, he said softly. I said nothing. We need your help. I leaned back. You're here because Damien tanked the company? He nodded. The board's resigning. Investors are fleeing. We're hemorrhaging. Should have thought about that before handing the throne to Instagram's favorite fail son. He flinched. I made a mistake. A mistake is forgetting to CC someone on an email. This was willful blindness. He swallowed. We're prepared to offer you control. CEO. Full reign. We'll even rebrand. You can restructure everything. I blinked. You think I'd go back to clean up your mess? You're the only one who understands the systems, the partners, the culture. No, Dad. I did. Until you told me none of that mattered. His voice cracked. We're out of time. Ariana, I already have a company I cut in. And unlike yours, mine's not under investigation. He sat down slowly. Then tell me, what do you want? I stood and walked to the window. The skyline glittered around us. I don't want revenge, I said. I want you to watch what real leadership looks like. I want you to watch as I do what you never had the courage to do, lead with integrity. He stood quietly. You won't help. No, I said. But I'll be here, at the front page of every business magazine, while your empire crumbles into dust. That night, I received an email from our attorney. Subject: activation confirmed. Congratulations. ClearPath has met all trust conditions. Profitable quarter verified. The $2.5 million fund is officially unlocked. I stared at the number. Not because I needed the money anymore, but because I'd earned it. Without telling a soul. Not with family connections. Not with pity. Not with shortcuts. Just grit, strategy, an unshakable vision. 3 days later, I got another text from Edgar. Please, just meet me. One last time. Against Naomi's advice, I agreed. We met in a quiet garden cafe near the harbor. He looked exhausted. Smaller somehow. I'm not here to negotiate, he said. I'm here to apologize. I waited. You were right, he said simply. About Damien. About Clara. About all of it. You didn't just pick the wrong person, I replied. You erased the right one. I was afraid, he admitted. Of legacy. Of being replaced. Of trusting the wrong child. But you did trust the wrong child. He closed his eyes. And now everything is gone. No, I said quietly. I'm the legacy. You just didn't see it. Back at the office, Naomi handed me a glass of sparkling cider. To surviving the Liu dynasty? No, I smiled. To outlasting it. And with the trust fund unlocked, our next phase was just beginning. Ariana Liu wasn't just surviving anymore. She was rising with purpose. And the world was watching. 6 months after LuTech collapsed, ClearPath Dynamics signed its largest international contract to date, with a European shipping conglomerate transitioning its entire supply chain to carbon-neutral practices. Our office doubled in size. Our team tripled. Our brand was now cited in every major industry newsletter as the gold standard in ethical logistics consulting. And yet, one moment still lingered in my mind. My grandmother's grave. So on a crisp autumn morning, I returned, alone this time. I laid white dahlias by her headstone and placed a copy of our company's first printed impact report beside it. Thank you, I whispered, for trusting me, even before I knew how to trust myself. That afternoon, I met with Ms. Bartlett again. She greeted me with that familiar warm smile and a leather folder. Your grandmother left one last instruction. She asked me to deliver this only if you fully activated the trust and built something that created jobs, not just income. I opened the folder. Inside was a handwritten letter and an official document. Ariana, you've done more than prove them wrong. You've built something that will outlive all of us. Now it's time to give others what you had. A chance. Included is the foundation charter. The rest is up to you. Love always, Grandma. Below that was the incorporation document of the Liu Foundation for Sustainable Innovation, a nonprofit grant initiative to support women founders in ethical tech and green industry. Tears filled my eyes, but they weren't from grief. They were from pride. She had left me wealth, yes. But more than that, she left me a mission. I launched the foundation quietly at first, but the momentum was swift. Within 2 months, we'd already issued 5 seed grants to female-led startups in eco-manufacturing, ethical AI, and supply chain tracing. And then something unexpected happened. My father showed up again. This time, not in a suit. No assistant. Just him, holding a paper coffee cup and looking 10 years older than I remembered. I heard about the foundation, he said. Your grandmother would be proud. She'd expect more than pride, I said. He nodded. I'm not here to ask for help, he said. But if you need consulting on governance or nonprofit structure, I have time. And experience. I paused. Considered. Trust is earned, I said. Then let me try, he replied quietly. I didn't say yes. But I didn't say no either. A year to the day since I walked out of that house with nothing but my purse and a broken heart, ClearPath hosted its first industry summit. Hundreds attended. I stood on stage beneath a glowing sign that read, Rebuilding the Future Together. And I told them my story, not about revenge or spite, but about clarity. About loss. And how sometimes losing everything clears the way for something better. A real legacy. When you build with your own hands. That night, after the lights dimmed and the guests filed out, Naomi raised her glass beside me. To what's next, she smiled. And I raised mine. To what we create. As we toasted under the city skyline, I knew this. They had taken my inheritance. But I had built something greater. And this time, no one could take it away. Speech balloon, have you ever been underestimated or pushed aside, only to rise even stronger? Share your favorite moment from Ariana's story in the comments. Which part gave you chills? Which decision did you cheer for? Let's talk about it below.